industry for more than 27 years and working with IBM for more than 22 years. Okay. Currently working as the security, regulatory, and risk management lead. Okay, for IBM. With that, let us start this session. And Sadish, this is audible, correct?
Yes, everything is fine. I hope all of you are able to hear. Maybe a quick chat window is all fine, and then we can. Okay, great. Yes, I can see one. Yes, excellent. So yes, Rajesh, everything is all fine. Please go ahead.
Okay, team. If I ask you, what do we mean by cloud? If I talk to a common person, and for their understanding, cloud means that is what we see when I just go outside and look at the sky, and that's a cloud. Correct? Is that what we wanted for our session? Then I hope that if I say that that's what I am going to do, my 90 plus people who joined will drop in a second. Correct? Then I'm not going to look at a cloud what we know, a common man know about the cloud. I'm not talking about that. Okay. Now then, let me go to the agenda. This is what I am going to talk about cloud. Just a literal meaning. I just wanted to talk about it's a cloud computing. Okay, that's a term. While we know that the term cloud which we are talking about, it's literally everyone talking about the cloud computing. Okay, that's what everyone should know. And whether it is an industry or anywhere, that is the buzzword which we are hearing about the cloud. Then agenda for today, a brief introduction to cloud computing and how really the journey of cloud has started. What are the worries for deployment today? And what are the top key players in the industry who offer the cloud solution? And what are the characteristics, service, and the deployment model? Sorry. What are the, I just looked at the initial poll. Like around 51% talked about hybrid cloud, correct? Actually, the majority of the things are going into hybrid cloud. I will give you a little more details on what do we mean by hybrid cloud. What are the biggest risks in cloud computing? And now a couple of terms which you should know today. And lots of people talk about. And when I move to cloud, and my traditional approach is, it's not going to be viable there. I may have my traditional approach. However, I may be using an altogether new technology and for the business. And for the new technology, there are lots of the technological development that's called containers and deployed on Docker and also the bare metal. Along with that, we are also going to talk about the security requirements, the audit consideration, as well as the current or what is the trend for enterprise technology in future. Sadish, there are 20 people put some query on the chat. Is it something people can see, or is it some problem there? Or?
No, everything's fine. So there was, I think, some poll results were displayed. I closed that. You can continue. Yes. And Q&A will be in the, I am keeping track of the chat window. No issue. You can just do it. And questions to can be put in the Q&A box, and you go ahead, and at the end we'll address the questions.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, once again. Let us start with the session now. Okay. Now, this is what we are talking about, cloud computing. Now, when any new technology comes, and what are the generic couple of questions which you generally ask? The first one may be, who invented this? Correct? Who invented?
So, Rajesh, I think your screen got is.
It's not visible.
Yeah, no. I think you stopped sharing. Please share the screen.
Okay, 1 second. Is it visible now?
Yes, perfect. You can go in the PPT mode. Yeah, perfect. Please go ahead.
Yeah, the first question anyone asks about any new technology or anything new coming into the stream, who invented, when was it invented, or when was it first mentioned somewhere, and what are the prospects for its future? Okay, now if I look at that, the journey of cloud computing and who invented, that's the biggest question. Okay, it's not new, and currently most of us knows that, okay, this cloud computing came in maybe 2000, after 2000. No, it's not the right answer. Okay, the cloud computing journey, which was started in 1960, when the JCR leader, LICKLIDER, and who is the person who was responsible for ARPANET. Maybe a couple of people knows, but otherwise you may need to look at that. Then the key idea for the team was everyone on the globe to interconnect and accessible the program and data. And that was the beginning of the journey of cloud computing. And that is also a journey of the World Wide Web, as well as whatever the things which you are seeing today, the web connectivity. Okay, that was the journey which started in 1960. After that, there are a couple of people, John McCarthy, who has also give lots of additional option for the introduction of the cloud computing. And the real the force came in when Salesforce.com and introduced in 1999 with their first selling methodology. And that's where the actual cloud and become more visible to everyone. And now the Salesforce.com now also it's in operation. They are one of the SaaS service provider today. Okay. Now just look at that and how a human evolution happened. Okay, that's way it was a gradual evolution that started in 1950 with the mainframe computing. Okay, when I talk about mainframe computing, what was that? And it's an interconnected machine, and it was very secure, safe computing. And you will have a machine, and you can connect from other one. It was just a vanilla, just a connectivity machine. That was the beginning. And when mainframe started in 1950, that also started the evolution of what we are seeing today. Around 1970, the concept of virtual machine started, and that actually added to the flavors for the cloud computing journey. In 1990, if you look at that, when the telecommunication company started offering the virtualized private network connection, and that's where we would have seen, and in 1990, and before the current way of mobile, you would have seen some pager, and it became a mobile later on with the 24 rupees per second now, per minutes now. Now you know the rates. Okay, there is the explosion in the telecommunication that actually and give more powers to the cloud computing journey. Now, at the beginning, grid computing. And the idea behind grid computing was to solve the large problem with the parallel computing. A couple of terms, utility computing, which was offering computing resources at a metered services. That if you look at that, that is what even today, when I go to the cloud, what I generally use, whatever I use and I pay. Okay, it's a usage. If I use 1 hour, I pay for 1 hour. That's the beginning and the larger option which we have seen for the cloud computing. The software as a service, and that's what we are seeing today, and a network-based subscription to application, which we will discuss later. And now cloud computing, if you look at today, it's anytime, anywhere access to IT resources delivered dynamically as a service. Now, for an education and for your understanding, when somebody talk about cloud computing, the idea behind that, the approach behind that, anyone, anywhere, without the location or any barrier, they can access to IT resources delivered dynamically as a service. And that's a real cloud computing journey which we started, and maybe 60, 70 years back. Okay, I hope that everyone got that message. The cloud computing, it's nothing new, which started only in a couple of years. No, it started way back in 1950. Okay, now I just wanted to give some the real the definition which is seen in multiple books and multiple messages. Now, if you look at that, the The standard ISO definition for a cloud computing, it's a paradigm for enabling network access to a scalable, that you know that it can go to any extent, and elastic pool of shareable physical or virtual resources with the self-service provisioning and administration on demand. The way we are going and getting many of the items, it's all enabled through our cloud computing power. Okay. Now, there is also a NIST definition. This is one definition which is used across. Cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources. Example, while it's a term, and but as long as you are going to be a cloud computing expert, so you need to know the definition. What do you mean by cloud computing? Okay. Now, the example of the model, it's a network, server, storage, application, and services. That's what you see today, and which can be rapidly provisioned and released with the minimal management efforts or service provider interaction. Now, if I am going to cloud, what generally happens? Okay. Now, even today, when you go to a railway station, what generally happens earlier? And even going to platform, what you need to really and go. I'm just a very simple example, and you need to go to the counter. And you wait for the term, and you will get a ticket. Okay, it was a manual ticket earlier, then moved to some electronic one. Now, you can also see lots of kiosks available, correct? And you can just go and click of the button and insert the money, and you get it. Okay, it's basically talking about with very real minimal management efforts or service provider interaction. If I take that example to creation of a server, if I want to get a new server provision for the organization, so what are the components involved with that? So you have a server, and you need to get all the management after getting architectural approval on what you need to deploy. You have the management approval. It will go to procurement. Procurement will raise a PO, and the PO will go to the vendor. The vendor will take 4 to 6 weeks to deliver the products. And once you deliver the products, the configuration and everything will take another 4 to 6 weeks. At the end of the day, and it will take 12 to 15 weeks to configure a server in the traditional way. If I'm using today, with a couple of seconds, and maybe if I take a seconds, maybe in 1 minute or 2 minutes or maybe 5 minutes, I provision one server which is available for production today. Okay, now how that is the way the cloud computing has grown. That's why in the initial poll, and when Sadish mentioned about any organization which is not using the cloud, maybe we may need to really look at that some or the other way, and everyone is using cloud for some business purpose. Now, if I talk about that, convert that into a discussion perspective, it's a disruptive technology that has the potential to enhance collaboration, agility. The word agility, and you are now hearing every day from in an organization or anywhere, agile methodology. Okay. Now, scaling and availability, as well as providing the opportunities for cost reduction. That's a key element for any one of us to look at that through optimized and efficient computing. The cloud model basically envisages a world where components can be rapidly orchestrated, provisioned, implemented, and decommissioned. Because if you look at that, that is a life cycle. It's the way you talk about the SDLC methodology for software development, and the PDCA for all program management. And there is a life cycle and a system coming and going out of the system, and that's your life cycle. And that's scaled or up or down to provide an on-demand utility-like model for allocation and consumption. And that's what, like electricity, and which what I consume, which I pay, correct? And that's what we really look at for if I'm going and moving towards cloud computing. Now, cloud computing is a new operational model and a set of technologies for managing shared pools of computing resources. This is what any person who is entering into cloud should know about cloud computing. Okay. Now, like you heard about when you were studying, and water is everywhere, water, no water to drink, correct? And that's what you would have heard about. Now, if you look at today, and cloud is everywhere. Okay, from a business perspective, 80 plus percentage of enterprise workloads. When I talk about workloads, the item moved into cloud. Okay, the 80 percentage of the workloads have not yet moved or leveraged the cloud. Okay, which means there is a huge potential for and every organization and to get the benefit coming out of cloud. If you look at that, wherever the cloud is implemented, on an average, enterprise use approximate 5 clouds. Oh, and that's a big numbers, correct? And why do I need to use a multiple cloud providers? We will discuss that. Okay. Now, wherever the cloud is implemented, you can look at that. More than 80 percentage of new applications, and it's that's they are going to will be developed using containers. Now, what is container? We will discuss, and this is a new terms, and this is not a server, but it's a similar, and it's using all the server components, including kernel. That's what I mentioned. This session, it's an education as well as a little more technical advancement for you to know when you talk about a cloud. Now, then more than 80% of the new application will be developed using containers. We'll discuss that later. Now, if somebody wants to use cloud, and what are the worries about enterprise hosting their core application to cloud? And this is the information. It's as of 2019, which is extracted from multiple and studies conducted. If you look at that, the security and compliance is still one of the biggest worries for any organization, including CIO, CISO, or the CEO and the board of directors for moving their core application into cloud. If anybody has a different opinion, you can put that in the chat. Okay, but this is one of the biggest concern. And if I am into information security, and all of you are going into that role, that's domain, or managing something, that you should know that the biggest worry for a cloud is security and compliance. And that was the case from the beginning. It was reduced from 100% to now 57%. The second one worries about governance and control. When I move the cloud, provision into cloud, and how do I put my governance and control in that domain? And that's another question. Managing and optimizing cloud cost, the expectation that, and at the moment I move to cloud, I get the immediate benefit of cost, but how it's going to get, that's another worries. In redesigning and replacing inefficient legacy process, so that is another, which was the biggest number earlier. Now it's reduced to 44%. They are saying many of our legacy application or system, and which we cannot migrate because the system doesn't support now. It was running in an end of life, some fashion somewhere, and I cannot take that out from a controlled environment to cloud and infrastructure. Now, if I also look at that, the difficulty interacting with the existing core system. And those who have really worked on the application migration or any of those areas, they can tell you that what are the real problem, and how do I integrate my core system into cloud, and what are the challenges involved. Now, these are the top 5. I only picked up the top 5 and worries, which is an enterprise. When I talked about an enterprise, it's starting from the board of directors to the CEO to CIO or CTO to CISO, and to the next level, and what are the real worries about cloud. I hope that's very clear to everyone. Now, if I look at that, now, what is a cloud computing? If I talked about, the cloud computing encompasses everything from Google apps, that's everyone knows today, correct? To a data center services, to virtualization, to a software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and the platform as a service. That is the cloud computing simple definition which is used across for a discussion table. Okay, the definition which we have seen in the first two slide, that is your education, the material. Now this is a discussion point when somebody talk about what is cloud computing, and this is what you may need to understand and get something around the cloud computing. Now, the key players include, and don't look at the order. Okay, I am from IBM. I put that IBM as one of the key players in the cloud computing. Okay, don't tell me that this is not the way, and industry has shown that these are the way the people has projected themselves. Don't go on. I did not meant for that, but I just only considered the top key players into the cloud computing. IBM, HP Enterprise, Google, Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, Salesforce, NetSuite, and VMware. There are so many others. But when you look at today, and these are the major players which have put their foot and made it visible to everyone in the globe about how you can migrate or use cloud computing for leveraging the organizational objective and also enhance the value for the shareholders and the stakeholders by utilizing the cloud computing methodology. Okay, now the next 3-4 slide, it's a purely an educational item. Now, if I talk about cloud computing, this is what you need to understand as a student, as the manager, leader, what all components goes behind the cloud computing. Now, as for NIST, there are 5 essential characteristics. There are 3 cloud service models and 4 cloud deployment model. While you can see that a couple of the deployment model would have changed it, but from a core perspective, as a student, you need to understand, or a professional, you need to understand when somebody talking about cloud, this is not one component make it a cloud, correct? The way the cloud which you have seen in the first page, the cloud computing, it's a components which talk about 5 essential characteristics. What is that? It's a broad network access. I will discuss in the subsequent slide. The rapid elasticity, the word itself will tell you, and the characteristic of the cloud computing. It's basically a measured service. The way I mentioned about use or pay on what you use, and it's an on-demand. If you want today, I will take. If I want a server today, click of the button, I'll get it, and after 2 hours, I don't need it. I just withdraw that or decommission that. Now, that's what it's talking about: on-demand, self-service, and the resource pooling. These are the 5 essential characteristics every leader which is talking about cloud should know. Okay, there is no other way. And these are the bare minimum everyone has to look at it. Now, what are the service model? These are the key components of service model. It's starting with the infrastructure as a service, and the platform as a service, and software as a service. Now, you will hear lots of new terms today. Workstation as a service, okay? Maybe identity and access management as a service. And you will see tremendous lots of services which is used today for the service model. But from a technological perspective, all these components lies behind these 3 service models. These are the core and the item which every leader should know. And the deployment model. While there are only 4 which is mentioned there, there is one more which most of the people talk about. One is public and the private and the hybrid, which is a combination of public or private, and the community, which is dedicated for some section. And you also see lots of models now which is talking about multi-cloud. We will discuss that in the subsequent slide. Sadish, just want to make sure that it's audible and people can listen, correct?
Yes, everything is going well, and I think.
Okay.
Continue.
Thank you. Moving to now cloud computing essential characteristic. Now, you know that. What is this? Okay, these are the characteristic. When somebody talk about what is resource pooling, okay, that is a fundamental characteristic for the cloud computing. The provider abstract resources and collect them into a pool, portion of which can be allocated to different consumers. Okay, okay, that means it can pool and which we can provide to multiple. And consumers provision the resource from the pool using on-demand service. What I need it, I take it. And broad network access means that all resources are available over a network. That's a key component. Without any need for direct physical access, the network is not okay. Direct to physical access, the network is not necessarily part of the service. Okay, which means it's available everywhere and as and when it's needed. And a rapid elasticity, the term itself will tell you, allows consumers to expand or contract the resources they use from the pool. When I talk about the pool, the provisioning or deprovisioning are often completed or completely automatically. This allows them to more closely match resource consumption with the demand. Measured service, basically, this is what actually happened. It's a metering. Meters, which is what is provided to ensure that consumers only use what they are allocated. If you are getting only 100 MB bandwidth, you are only getting 100, and you will use only out of that maybe 1 GB, you may be using 600, and that's what you really look at it. And if necessary, to charge them for it. This is where the term utility computing, which I talked about, comes from, since computing resources can now be consumed like water and electricity. Whatever I need it, I get it, and I pay for that. Electricity, that's what everyone knows it, correct? I use it, I set up an AC, and my electricity bill goes for threefold. Okay, okay. Now, similarly, and you can use the computing powers or resources what you wanted. You wanted today 1, 200, and one of the example is our railway. During 10 o'clock, the Talkal happens. And that's where they need more computing power. Okay, 10 to 11. Okay, then they can increase that. During 10 to 11, I need maybe 500 system additional deployed for my purpose. And after 11 o'clock, that is, I'm not going to use it. And they can use that for cost benefit analysis and meeting their overall objective, which means the client only pay for what they use it. Now, this is the cloud computing model which is talking about. What is that? Okay, if you look at that, the key model on the bottom, that is your infrastructure as a services. What do you get it as part of infrastructure as a service? It offers access to a resource pool of fundamental computing infrastructure such as compute, network, storage. These are the only 3 elements which you get it. When you want an infrastructure as a service, you will get a computing power, the network access, and the storage, maybe 5 gigabit or maybe something similar to that. That's what you get it when you only opt for infrastructure as a service. But you look at the stack, just having a hardware and or the components, because in the traditional way we look at the hardware, on top of that I install my operating system, and on top of that I install my the middleware, and on top of that I'll install my application. Correct? If you look at the base one, and from a pool, you will get, when you choose an infrastructure as a service, you will get the computing, network, and storage power. When I move to platform as a service, it's abstract and provides development or application platforms such as DB and applications. It can be many things. And also the key differentiator that with PaaS, you don't manage the underlying servers, network, or other infrastructure, which I'll talk about a little later. Because for a cloud service provider, in order to provision something, but for example, take an example of electricity. In order for you to get an electricity at home, what all they needed? They need to generate the electricity somewhere, and they have to set up everything and till it reaches to your house, correct? And that's the same way a cloud service provider has to install that bare minimum infrastructure and wherever it's available, and which till it reaches to you as a click of the button. Okay, so that's what you look at on this one. When somebody opting for software as a service, it's a full application which is given, that is managed and hosted by the provider. If I am talking about IBM, if I use SaaS, and you will get everything, and the consumers access it with a web browser, mobile app, or lightweight client app. Okay, when you understand, and this is a way the whole infrastructure on service model of cloud computing work. Okay, this you need to know the characteristic and 5, and the key one 3, but there are lots of new service model. With that, you also see how a cloud computing deployment model works. It's a public cloud. It's a generic term itself. The cloud infra is made available to the general public or a large industry group, and is owned by the organization selling cloud services. What is a private cloud? The cloud infrastructure is operated solely for a single organization. For example, IBM, I take it, or Infosys, okay, maybe Wipro, or take any organization. Somebody using it cloud that is used for their private purpose. For example, you have a pool at home, okay, and if you go to the biggest builders, what you get? Along with your house, you may get a private pool, okay, and you look at the terms, okay, and that's where it's all solely for you, correct? And you need to look at the control mechanism required. That's a later stage. It may be managed by the organization or by a third party, and may be located on premises or off premises. So if I take the same way for pool, you can manage yourself, and you can infuse water, diffuse and clean the water by yourself or by a third party. You can tell them, and it can be located in the US, or you have some rendered places. It's only dedicated for you. Similarly, that's why the private cloud operates. Community cloud, it's very rare, but it's working there. The cloud infrastructure is shared by several organizations and support a specific community that has shared concern. And it may be managed by the organization or by a third party, and may be located on premise or off premise. Hybrid. This is where the term now moving towards hybrid cloud. The cloud infrastructure is a composition of 2 or more clouds. It can be private, community, or public, or multi, that remain unique entities but are bound together by standardized or proprietary technology that enables data and application portability. Example, the cloud bursting for load balancing between clouds. That's the way it works. And you use what is private and what is public. For example, I use private for my critical application. I use maybe public cloud for maybe education session, or maybe for test and development, or maybe using some production purpose, which is not so critical. Okay, and that's the way people host the hybrid cloud today. Hybrid is also commonly used to describe a non-cloud data center bridged directly to a cloud provider. Now, what do you mean by hybrid cloud? If I talk about an industry standards or industry today, 20% of workloads, that means the movement of the items into cloud, have made their way to public cloud. Okay, which means people are okay and to move their couple of systems into public, and these are not yet companies' core mission or critical workloads. Now, you look at the terms, and I have not moved the core mission critical workloads into public cloud because of which we saw the key the concern what we have today. Now, 80% that remains is where the real enterprise value lies. Okay, we are now at an inflection point. People are now utilizing the cloud computing power. Hybrid cloud permits public clouds, private clouds, and on-prem IT to interoperate seamlessly. Now, what do you mean by on-premises? That's our existing data center which we have today. Correct? Now, it also uses standardized technology interface across the pre-enabled business to innovate with the scale and agility, improve responsiveness and constraining costs. Despite the growing complexity, but still people are using it, and it's moving towards the right pattern. Security is central to a successful cloud deployment. And if you can address that, you would be somewhere, and you would be meeting with very cost-effective, agility, and which has elasticity to power everything today. Okay, how take an example, and how Geo and how Vodafone or maybe Bharti Airtel, how did they move from base to now where they are today? Okay, because the moment they grow, and they are also utilizing all these technological power. Hybrid cloud also allows workloads to be deployed to the best environment for that. Public clouds, this is what you, for your generic awareness. As of today, public clouds are well suited for many front office workloads. Private clouds are well suited for many of the mission critical workloads where the benefits of clouds are desirable, but the security and assurance of a private environment is a key. Okay, that's what if we look at the first one, 2080. The traditional IT environments are suited for workloads that don't inherently take advantage of cloud benefits and demand the dedication of computing resources. And I can afford to have a standalone machine for every item, then okay, go ahead. But again, the organization were also using the VM power and there as well, and to reduce the computing power. Okay, now along with that, I just wanted to look at a term called containers. This is a pure technical item which is currently used in all the cloud technology. You will not see that the servers, okay, and people are started using moving from servers to containers. Look at what is a container. It's a virtualization of application instead of a hardware. Okay, it runs on top of the core operating system. Okay, the currently what is happening, I need to have an operating system, maybe Windows operating system or Linux or Unix or any of the platform running on that is single for that particular one. But if I use container, it's a lightweight, which I look at the subsequent slide. If you look at that, it doesn't require dedicated CPU, memory, network. It can be managed by the core OS. Okay, while on the right side, it's a diagram which is talking about how it's deployed. But just look at that. When I use container, it does not require a dedicated CPU, memory, or network, including the OS. And it optimizes the infrastructures and in terms of speed and density. The containerization seems poised to offer both a complement and a viable alternative to server virtualization. This is a key, and this is what the industry is looking today and moving towards that. And how the container is leading the IT transformation. If you look at on the right side, from 2000 to 2016 and 2018 now, if you look at that, it's all changed. It's all moving now, and where it is required actually. And what are the driving factors for containers? And why do I need to use a container instead of a server? It's because of the density and the performance, the licensing cost. That's a huge licensing cost which we pay today, correct? And how easily I shift to DevOps, okay? Rather than putting everything and operating level controls, I shift to DevOps where I code that and put all the controls there. Also, it utilizes a cloud native application and faster exploration and deployment if I use a container. If you look at today, 95% of companies are using cloud. That's the power which is moving from server to cloud. Maybe this is a new term and for you to understand, but as long as you are going to be in the cloud domain as a practitioner, you need to understand what is a container, how it's a Docker, and how the serverless systems are working today. Now, 95% of companies are using cloud, and the adoption of private hybrid cloud is steadily increasing. The interesting fact is that the container is expanding rapidly. And what is a container history? I'm not going to read it, but you can just look at that. It started way back in 1979, and the Docker came into picture. It's in 2013, and that's basically build, ship, run, focus on application container. But this is I'm not going to much on this technical domain, but that we will do some different session only for containerization for maybe CPE for maybe in the next 6 months. Now look at that. There is a difference between containers, VM, as well as bare metal. You are hearing a word today, and VM, virtual machines, and I have a container. What is a bare metal? Now look at that. If I use container and look at this, the speed and consistency, And if I use bare metal and virtual, look at that. And the provisioning time for a container will take seconds. If I have a virtual machine, it will take minutes. And if I'm just hosting creating a bare metal, that's take hours. That's the way the configuration, the benefits. If you look at that, if I use the container, the tenant isolation, it's at OS level, it's a kernel level, it happens, and not at the hypervisor or physical level. Which means I only need to use a small portion of the kernel to host a container. And the configuration and the reconfiguration, it's also very high, and a high consolidation density, it's possible, and it goes to very granularity. While I'm sure that it's a very it would have gone from your head, that's okay. But you just understand using the container, it gives lots of benefits. And if I use virtual machine, it has a benefit. And what is the problem if I use the physical system? Okay. Now, what is a containerization? It's basically offer both a complement and a viable alternative to server. What is a bare metal? A bare metal server is a computer server that is a single tenant physical server. Okay, the term used nowadays to distinguish it from modern forms of virtualization and cloud hosting. If I have bare metal servers, have a single tenant. They are not shared between customers. Now this is where I'm moving a little away from that my technical domain to the process now to understand that cloud infrastructure over the next 5 years, as a hybrid cloud become widespread, there is some variation in how it's being implemented in the future. Look at that. In the next 5 years, where I'm going to deploy my cloud. In the regulated industries, what do you mean by regulated industry? And banking, telecom, okay, maybe health industry. These are all regulated, okay, where the cloud infrastructure, look at that, public cloud 30 and maybe private and traditional, it still be there. And private cloud maybe 40 because of the inherent problem in that. But in the unregulated industries, people are going to use public cloud more, and the private and traditional, and it's going to be equal. But if you look at that, even if I'm migrating to cloud infrastructure, my traditional or on-premises are still viable in the next couple of years. Now, Docker, and another term, just for your interest only, Docker is a tool designed to make it easier to create, deploy, and run application using container. Okay, the container allow a developer to package up an application with all of the parts it needs, such as libraries and other dependencies, and ship it out as one package. Don't worry about this. The way an operating system, when you get it, and all the codes are defined somewhere in the operating system, which is not available for to modify, correct? But when I use Docker and container, I have the ability to modify the contents there, and that I just package it. It's like a tool or exe, and that's what you see in a Docker and container. If I use container, and I don't need to really look at maybe hardening at where do I harden then? I just put all the codes in the container, and that become my one package. Maybe it's going beyond your head, but it's you are seeing it's kind of a scenario. In the server, you need to put password control, correct? When I use container, then the controls are still there, but the way I configure and the life cycle for container, it's still a different one. I'm not going to discuss much on the Docker, but this is what you need to understand it. What is the benefits of cloud migration? Okay, it's an unlimited scalability. Okay, now no need to build up an infrastructure for each of your business location, and that's a huge cost today, correct? Plus, you can always upgrade your storage or capacity if needed today, if I have that. Now, take an example. We use gas today, correct? Everyone. Okay, if I was in Delhi, okay, if somebody is from Delhi as well, when I have my Indian Oil or HP, okay, so I get one what you call 1 or 2 maximum, correct? But gradually it become and a service itself, and they come and connect it. It's like the way you use electricity, and you can also use the gas the way it is wanted. That's way you need to really link how this overall migration happens. Okay, now it's a fast deployment. Roll out software updates for all users simultaneously, no matter where they are. In the standard way, what really happens? I need to really look at which data center, which system. I need to do it manually. If I use the cloud, and I can run software updates, and that's one of the key elements today, correct? You get a patch, and if you are not applying the patches in a timely manner, your system is subject to the even ransomware today. Okay, I don't know how many of you are really aware that ransomware is really killing the industry nowadays. And reliability, solid DR recovery package, and guarantee the minimum possible time. When I say DR package, you need to make sure that all the DR requirements are met, configured appropriately. Uh, if I use the cloud overall migration, the business that enjoy the advantages of moving to the client are, it's more efficient, and as a result, it's more competitive. That's why there is no option left for us rather than understanding the cloud, migrating the cloud in an up and manage the risk in an appropriate way. Okay. However, you should also be aware of the cloud migration risk before you start the process. The transition itself is a problem, and the time required, the cost required, and efforts for cloud migration. And if you have any legacy system, whether that can be migrated, and whether which all portion which I can migrate to public cloud, private cloud, or which all area which I need to look at. Lots of planning and the efforts required at the beginning, but once it is there, it's like once you set up the railway track, then what happens? It runs, correct? Unless there is a sabotage or some cleaning required. But otherwise, and once set up the path, it all runs very quickly. Now, data security. This is the key element. Sadly, the cloud providers often become a subject of security breaches and data leaks today. And that leads to millions of dollars in damage. Okay, that also needs to take care. And a dependency on the vendor, and whether be it on changes in your pricing plan or global service outage, or there is nothing you can do but grin and bear it, or change the cloud service provider if there is no reliable vendor. And that's the way you need to look at in terms of cloud migration. Now, what should be your cloud migration strategy? Okay, now you need to decide on your cloud type and service model. First you looked at beginning, correct? The characteristics is that what you need to understand, but the service model and the type, that's what you really need to look at, where you need to deploy the cloud. And now, how do you allocate your resources very wisely and effectively? And how do you evaluate your current application and infrastructure, document the requirements and plan the milestone, run a pilot project, and automate the process, monitor and improve the performance? The way you run a program today, and that all components you need to use it with an agile approach for even cloud migration strategy. Sadish, I hope it's all audible and it's going and it's audible, correct?
Yes, yes, Rajesh, everything is going well and all
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, let us move on. If you look at that, if you really wants to know, I talked about public cloud, correct? Only 20% of my workload has moved into public cloud, correct? Because of multiple reasons. Now, if you look at the key players today, public cloud adoption, and who are the key players actually, if you look at that, the AWS and Microsoft Azure, the way it is, but I just copied from the industry, okay? It's not created by me, okay? If you look at that, AWS, 60% currently use, maybe 16% is experimenting, and 7% maybe plans to use even AWS. That's on the top. And Microsoft Azure, it's look at they are growing like very fast. They are capturing the market. Now, other players like Google or VMware, IBM Cloud, Oracle, Alibaba, it's all there. They are the cloud providers. And but look at their numbers; they are growing. But there are some key players today, and for public cloud adoption. But if you look at now, when you lose that to enterprise, maybe this chart will not be viable there. That will be a different chart which you will see that. Now, what are the challenges for adoption today, even for this? Okay, this is basically the top one which I captured. Okay, maintaining the data security. Again, security is the biggest concern today for migration, anything to the cloud. If you look at that, small business 39%, medium with 46, and enterprise has 47% of the data security concern. Okay, and migrating workloads to the cloud, and the small business are okay, but when it comes to the enterprise, the percentage, you can see a big change in the percentage. And compliant with the data regulations, that's a key. Now, the recent data regulation, something called GDPR, and everyone must be knowing it, correct? May 25th, 2018 was the date to comply with the GDPR. If any organization is not complying to GDPR, and there is a penalty associated with that, 4% of their total revenue. And you can, I don't know how many of you are aware, even recently, a couple of organizations have been penalized for non-compliance to the data security and privacy requirements. Now, optimizing workload, and the small businesses making move, the enterprise are taking momentum, but they are yet to reach a level where it wants to be. Managing multiple cloud solution, again, small business are really taking they have already started and taking the lead, and followed by the medium size and enterprise. Managing the cloud spend and modernizing cloud infrastructure, and that also an area which people are looking at. These are the challenges for cloud adoption today. Now, by saying all this, these were all your learning material. Now, what do you mean by then cloud security? If you look at that, the cloud computing is one of the key drivers for achieving an organization mission today. There is no option for us. There is no such thing that I will not adopt this. Cloud spending will continue to grow, making it to the top investment area for the enterprise. It's a discussion point in the board today. And cybersecurity is the second major spending item quoted by the CIOs in the same survey today, which means people are taking cloud computing and people are migrating to cloud to meet their organizational objective. They are also really concerned about the cybersecurity, and that also given a largest spending in today's scenario. And which means cloud security means, what do you mean by, if somebody asks you, what is a cloud security? Which means keeping your data stored online safe, or that is preventing it from being stolen, leaked, or deleted. Okay, that's the first term which you need to really understand. Security is a major roadblock for cloud migration, and I'm repeating it multiple times, and remains a top concern for IT professionals all over the world. This is not an India scenario or one geographic scenario. It's a worldwide phenomenon. Now, as data protection regulations are becoming more stringent, like GDPR, and also a couple of them are coming in India. And if you are hearing today the newspaper, including the Times of India, what you are seeing, even our industry and the regulators are talking about our data should lies within India, which means I need to make sure that the critical data which I'm hosting, which should be hosted within India, not somewhere else, correct? Okay, which is possible also in the cloud domain, but only I need to set up that way. Okay, now the inability to comply with them and keep your users' information secure can cost you very, very costly today. A couple of organizations are paying the penalty up to 5 billion. Okay, and maybe we talk about a billion, and some of the industry is not there. So 5 billion is the penalty which somebody is paying today. According to the recent study, and I picked up some from industry only, the average cost of data breach worldwide now equals to 3.8 million. Basically, what it's talking about, if somebody compromising, it's a $148, it's per compromise is what happening. If somebody has ransomware attack, okay, even if you pay $1 and for several systems, it comes to major numbers. Okay, and average data breach costs you around 3.8 million US dollar. It's a huge, huge money for any organization to afford for today. And it also varies from country to country. Maybe 7.9 million in USA for each breach. And maybe if you go to some of the Middle East and African countries, it's at Brazil, or you will see the amount is a little less because the way it is configured, the controls. Yeah, when it comes to security, timing is everything. The earlier you detect and fix the problem, the better. Okay. Namely, the organization that managed to address a breach is less than 30 days tend to save up to 5 million on an average. Now, this is what a cloud security exposure it's which you want to know in a nutshell in a page. Okay, what are the biggest security risk of cloud computing today? As you have heard a couple of terms, the data breach is one of the key elements. Data loss, denial of services, cryptojacking, account hijacking. This is all new terms coming into the industry now. Insecure applications, APIs, insider threats. Insider threats was there, and 75 to 80% is still there. But you can see the biggest risk is coming with data. Okay, and the way to today we talked about the threats, and this data also becoming the top contributor for on those, and the data security, privacy protection, it's become one the biggest element. So what do you mean by data breach? A data breach or leak is possibly the most widespread cloud security concern. It usually happens as a result of cloud computing security attacks when unauthorized users or program gain access to confidential data and can view, copy, and transmit. That's where a data breach happens. For example, and I am snoozing your account. Okay, not only snoozing, or I am snoozing into your health records, and then it's okay. But if I have the ability to modify your bank account, that's all gone. Correct? Data loss. If you look at that, unlike data breaches, data loss often happens due to natural or man-induced disasters as a result of physical destruction of servers or human error. For example, data loss. What is it? The small example which I can give you. By mistake, I deleted all the data. Okay, instead of running a command with a star or something, I put star dot to some commands, and it's completely erased all of my data. Now then I need to look for where is my backup, all other things come into picture. Correct? Now denial of service. Basically, this term is very familiar to you, and DOS, and distributed denial of service, DDoS. It's basically another popular type of cloud computing security attack. It's basically its attack shut down your cloud services and making them temporarily unavailable to your users. For example, you would have similarly experienced in 10 o'clock, correct? While it's not a DOS attack, what really happens to railway? When you 10 o'clock, when you try to log on, your browser, if your computing power and your network access is very slow, what really happened? It's only just a search. You will not get access to the data what you want, correct? It's similar to that. While it's not a good example, but it's just to tell you the concept. That system is not made available, and you cannot use the one because of the attack coming in that all the computing power is used by something else. This can be done by either flooding the system with extensive traffic, which the server simply cannot buffer, or crash it by taking advantage of the bugs and vulnerabilities. Okay, the one cryptojacking. This is a relatively new cloud security threat. Cryptojacking was widely adopted last year. This is something new, largely due to the growing cryptocurrency frenzy. What is cryptocurrency? Everyone knows about the blockchain, correct? And that's what introduced if somebody talk about blockchain, the first thing comes to my mind, the Bitcoin, correct? Okay. Now, in this type of cloud security attack, hackers use your computing resources to process cryptocurrency transactions by installing a crypto mining script on your servers without your system. This is something which you need to really understand, but this is what you need to look at when it comes to the financial transaction. Account hijacking. Even if your employees are not using default insecure passwords, hackers still can guess the credentials, gain access to your cloud using your staff's account, and as a result, steal or manipulate your data or sabotage your business process in general. This is called account hijacking. Basically, what is the password generally which we do? If my name is Rajesh, and okay, Rajesh, I stay in Bangalore. Okay, Rajesh 123 Bangalore. Okay, or Rajesh 123 or Bangalore 123. If my house name is 510, okay, Rajesh 510. Okay, now there are that's a standard way then people can assume, or your wife name with a couple of characters, or kid's name, or combination of your date of birth, or maybe while I need a 8-character password, and I can also put 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 also, correct, or ABCDEFG, or it's all possible. There are 800 or 900 commonly available password. If somebody just use that, and we can hack your password, but they will also use lots of guessing one based on your credentials. Where do I get your credential? Look at your LinkedIn, look at your Facebook, look at your WhatsApp, and everywhere I can see every credential which is belongs to you. Okay, and that's where it is easy for anybody to do a hijacking. And an insecure IPS. This is something new, and your mobile can have hundred of applications. Correct. If your own systems are safe, there are often third-party services that can introduce additional cloud security risk. Okay, namely IoT solutions. Okay, Internet of Things solutions are typically considered a threat to data privacy. Devices such as connected cars, health monitors, home appliances collect and transmit tons of sensitive data in real time. As a result, intruders can hijack your data by hacking your APIs, not the cloud. Okay, now insider threats, I'm just moving away, otherwise you will get bored. Apart from external security threats in cloud computing, there are enough internal risks. Example, your own employees can cause privacy violations or major data leaks. This can be due to targeted malicious behavior or simply a result of human error. Moreover, they can serve as an entry point for malware, example, BYOD. Okay, now just move from that casual discussion, and how to avoid a major security threats today. This is what, as a cloud person and information security guy, should know. Conduct a cloud security assessment regularly. How that you may need to look at it, and implement the cloud security monitoring practices. Establish and solid manage access management policies. This is a very, very big item, which anybody wants to know, that access management is my key controls for anything. Okay, whether it is bank account or anything. Okay, that's where you get your credentials and you get to manage that. Create a disaster recovery plan and BCP. That's a key. Otherwise, while we are in cloud, we need to make sure that there is an adequate backup and recovery is available. Encrypt your data. This is a new buzzword, and this is one of the control requirements for many of the data privacy and the GDPR requirements. The first and foremost, it's easy to win or easy to execute, is your raise employee awareness, and how it can be done various way. Unless you educate, you have a bigger problem in that. And wider adoption of two-factor or biometric authentication methods, and that's to make sure that your the administrative password or key credentials are secured through two-factor or biometrics methods. In addition to that, if you look at that, the more organization realizing the importance of proper leadership in cyber security. This was not the case maybe 5 to 10 years back. Okay, now you can see that establishing a CISO role for cybersecurity risk insurance becoming an important aspect of enterprise risk strategy today. Now, this is the bare minimum you need to look at how to avoid a major security threats in the organization. Now, what are the key security requirements? Okay, Sadish, what is the time? We took 1 hour now.
Yes, yes. In fact, it is currently it's 7:15, so it's more than an hour now, 1:15. So we are comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, we're comfortable.
Okay, good. Okay, now I just wanted to put you a little more advanced in terms of security requirements. If you look at that, the people, data, applications, and infrastructure, that's a key components for any infrastructure protection or any data security privacy protection or anything which is need to secure. It all start with your people. Okay, and you can also lots of security intelligence analytics and the GRC tools available today. At the end of the day, as long as you are in information security, the one of the buzzword you need to understand is your CIA. What is the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data and everything. That's your starting point. That's the base taken for even for cloud infrastructure. And if you look at that, the CIA, data privacy, regulatory, and legal requirements become the key enabler or key aspects for protection mechanism. What are the key risks which you need to really look at that? Even there are lots of risk in the service provider. Then the service provider risk which you need to really assess it, and the technological risk. Now, this is a discussion point which we can have it maybe even for 5 hours. Okay, okay. What is a technical risk? Okay, take an example. I have a firewall and a sophisticated firewall, and I can have thousands of rules. But if I do not put it secure, and if I enable a couple of commands which allows all the incoming and outgoing traffic freely and flawlessly, like IP, any, then it's all done. That's one of them. Like second, you will have lots of end of life, end of services. And what is the problem with end of life or end of services system? You will not get the patches or the remedy for the future vulnerabilities. You will not get it. Okay, then which means whether it is internal or external threats can really exploit those vulnerabilities and take control of your system, and thereby we can just put you in biggest risk. Now, external risk, it can be you. That is a new look way we need to look at that. What are the risks coming as part of the overseas, and the management and oversight risk. And while this is a good term, and this is another biggest risk which we need to look at it. If there is no governance in place, there is no oversight from the management and the implementation, and nothing will happen. Now, one of the key elements, if there is no management or leadership involvement, many of the cybersecurity concern or security concern in cloud will not really mitigate that. Hence, there should be an adequate governance and a leadership mechanism should be put in place there. Now, you also need to look at the other security threats and connectivity and data privacy risk and legal regulatory risk. Now, how do you really manage with this? Okay. Now, a couple of points, and you also need to know lots of tools available today. Okay. Now, you will have lots of firewall, and you can use it for just for traffic, or you can use it for really protection of the system. Then you need to really look at lots of IDS or IPS install, or maybe and how do you really protect the data? And you need to look at lots of DLP available in the system, and hosting many of your system into DMC, and how the connectivity happens, how you all of your external and infrastructure, and that's your first priority to protect. If you have the internet firewall, and that would be your starting points to protect it. The way you protect a physical, like the perimeter, by putting a biggest wall and 8 feet along with the barbed wires, that's your perimeter protection. Similarly, you need to make sure that there is a good and a logical protection which is available for your firewalls as well. Now, based on that, based on our experience today, a couple of points which we look at, and how do you really address that security requirements. Create a security policy to manage the infrastructure. Now, how do you create a security policy to manage infrastructure? Which is lots of standards are available, or lots of frameworks are available today. And one of them, maybe it's a CAS framework, or ISO, or COBIT. And these are the frameworks which is available today, which you need to adopt so that you can just use it and customize it for your organization. That will really help you. And many of you knows that somebody has created, you are using it. Okay, but there is always an opportunity to enhance and put control for that. Create the processes, procedures, and work instruction. While everyone say that, yeah, I have lots of process, but 80 to 90% of the cases, there is a fair chance for enhancement in the improvement in every process and procedure. And you also need to look at and to use ITIL framework for all the processes. You also need to make sure that you have the relevant tools available. And okay, everything manual which will not work when you are using cloud. One of them, and currently, how do you manage an inventory? And you may be managing an inventory through an Excel sheet, and maybe you may have developed some application. But if I am going to cloud, and I may use some cloud metering technology for the inventory, or I may need to use some of the tools, maybe Tivoli tools, or maybe some other tools which is available in the market for managing the inventory. Now, every platform, when I talk about a platform, you need to understand a couple of them based on your service model, correct? Infrastructure as a service, what is platform as a service, application as a service. There are multiple stacks within that, correct? You need to make sure that the controls are there, starting with the infrastructure and the operating system, whether it is any of the operating system or container, or whether it is mainframe or anything. You need to have the adequate controls starting from that, starting with your access control, your password control, logging, and how many days the logs are need to retain, and where you need to retain the logs, whether you need to retain the logs in a different server so that the administrator will not have an ability to delete those details, encryption, and lots of protocols in the system. And there are 6,000 plus, correct? If you look at that, and then more than 1,001, it's very critical ports. Okay, and now you need to make sure that the critical ports, which is like maybe port 80 or maybe 22, 24, and a couple of them. Okay, these ports are really whether it's enabled or restricted. Because if I allow my SSH connectivity from remote or remote logging possible, then it all creates lots of exposures to your system. That all controls you need to enable through creating an implementation manual. The best one you can use it maybe a CIS framework. And now you need to perform a periodic assessment. And when I say it can be a process assessment and procedure or policy assessment, tool assessment, and even for your implementation manual assessment. And also, you may need to really look at and how to enable the penetration testing and vulnerability assessment. And when I talk about penetration testing, it's basically coming outside without knowledge of your network and trying to access your network from outside or your client information system and data. And the vulnerability assessment happens when I have the complete connectivity. I just go and execute to identify the known or vulnerabilities. Now, also you need to enforce a practice to and remediate the identify weakness and through your management oversight and management governance. Okay, now these are the bare security requirements which is available and which all of you must know, and to protect the infrastructure today, and whether it is cloud or whether it is on premise or whether you use multiple ways of clouds. With that, this is based on our experience and what are the factors which you need to consider for auditing today. Now it's 9:23. Yes, I have time. And Sadish, I can continue for next 15 minutes also, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you want to take a quick break, also it's fine. I can just engage a few questions.
Yes, please. Yeah, Sadish, please.
Okay, great. So maybe if you can just stop sharing your screen just to engage, so that you can just go and.
Yeah. But 1 second, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Pause share or 1 second?
No, stop share.
Stop share. Yeah, I did it.
So yeah, please come back. Maybe I'll just engage. So I think many questions. Thanks. I think there's a lot of interaction happening, and I'm happy. In fact, anyway, I'm not taking all the questions, but I'm just tempted to answer few of the. In fact, a few of the questions, like many have asked about the cloud security, and naturally that's always a. So most of time I play this devil's advocate role. In fact, of course, Rajesh has been talking about concerns about cloud security. But then, having said that, equally the cloud service providers, of course, the big ones like AWS or Azure, so they definitely very mature practices or security of their environment. Now, in fact, I think again I'm not going through all the questions, but a few standard questions in the chat window I see, like, will the cloud provider allow me to do audit, and what about the security and all that. So I think if you look at I think many of you are seeing my screen. I just kept the AWS compliance page in front of you. I think all of you can see my screen. So AWS is very serious on security, and I think they have close to 55 or 60 compliances. In fact, whatever you can think under the sun. In fact, if you look at the global compliances, whether it's ISO 27001, and of course, based on the 27002 framework, there is 17 and 18 very specifically to the cloud controls. And of course, PCA DSS. I think someone asked a question about will cloud provider allow me to do audit? I think it's very hard to imagine AWS having millions of customers, right? All cannot go and do an audit, nor they can entertain. But having said that, I think many of you are aware of the SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3 reports. So it's independent, differently report from the AI CPA. So they in fact engage one of the very large Big Four consulting firm or someone to go and do a very thorough. So these reports are typically are great. In fact, so gives you provides assurance. So definitely they'll provide you all the required, in fact, comfort. So the point is, of course, they may not allow you to do an audit, but then you can. So once you are a customer, I think once you are a customer, there is a section called Artifact. Most of, I'm talking about AWS, but all of them, whether Azure or Google or, so they provide you all the relevant reports because they also want you as a customer and they want to give you the right kind of assurance. So you can see the compliance page. If you look at this, the globally they comply against most of the standards, leading standards, including the CSA Cloud Controls Matrix and SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, and specifically country-wise, of course. So they follow most of those. You can see FIPS, FISMA, HIPAA, NIST standards, and Canada. I think so when someone says that I'm not comfortable on the cloud service provider security controls, but I think it's all the same question can be asked to your own organization controls, right? I know always what you don't see, there's always a discomfort. But having said that, leading cloud providers like Amazon, Azure, Google are very serious on security because naturally it's a because security is taken very seriously with these cloud providers. In fact, so again, while I'm not talking for AWS, but then typically I do this. When someone says I'm not comfortable in cloud, so then I say, so I think, and also I think I was talking in the chat window that the cloud predominantly runs on a shared responsibility model. It's not that everything cloud provider will look at. So the underlying infrastructure, the components, the global infrastructure, Amazon is very serious in securing them. But having said that, the data, the application, what you host on those platform or what they give is definitely your responsibility. So it's a shared responsibility model. You have to secure your, in fact, what you host. So I think most of the breaches, if you see, most of the breaches around key, what you call compromises or data, maybe applications are not built securely. So typically, again, I'm not saying cloud is always secure, but then it's all about the configurations about, and most of the cloud service providers gives you a lot of services. In fact, we look at AWS Marketplace, they provide you plenty of solutions, what or even the services what they offer. You need to take the right services, enable those services like access management and put the replay, whatever you can think, and like typically whatever controls you put in your own environment, all of them. Maybe you ask me, will cloud provider give me a PIM and PAM solution? Of course, yes. So you can even cloud providers allow you to bring your own license. You say, I have my own license. So most of the cloud providers allows you to bring your own license. And again, so that way they are very serious. I'm not saying that. I think, of course, one side we keep talking about cloud security, but these leading providers like Amazon, Azure, Google, and most of them are very serious. And having said that, rest all the controls what applies to your environment, definitely you have to put the same controls because finally data, encryption, all that you have to manage for yourself. While they provide various, in fact, services, you can go and subscribe and you can, but most of the issues are around configurations, around loose key management, or you're not choosing the right encryption. So all those are standard. I'm not saying, of course, a cloud. So basically, it's a balancing between both. So that's the. So you don't need to conduct audits because already AWS provides you all these reports available, which can definitely suffice your own audit requirements. Your auditor will be happy if you provide the SOC 2 report or a SOC 1 report, or all these reports are. So all of the leading cloud providers basically provides you. So again, I'm not answering all the questions, but yes, I just thought let me give a small break to Rajesh because he has been talking for more than an hour now. So and I was tempted to answer this like so definitely cloud has definitely all that. So when someone says when someone says, in fact, I'm not comfortable, so I say, I think, how can, like, whatever security you have put in, I think most of them you have to put back into the cloud, but the underlying infrastructure is definitely secure, or because it's their reputation also. Now, VAPT, of course, they definitely they do. I told you the shared responsibility model. They conduct vulnerability assessments, or of course, see, they, like Amazon, Azure, they have very serious. In fact, just it's not only about exercises, but then they do continuous monitoring. In fact, they have very matured, in fact, security practices. But having said that, for your application or your thing, you have to conduct your own assessments, which of course with due permissions, they provide a window which you can definitely go and get this done. And one more question was, typically none of the cloud providers allow you to change contract terms or agreement. Yes, that's a common problem, because naturally they cannot entertain every change. Otherwise, every small customer spinning off one mission wants to have his own agreement. And but if you are a very large customer, imagine you are putting all your workloads on the cloud. Maybe you're a very large enterprise. Of course, you can talk to the enterprise team of AWS or Azure, and definitely you can ask for some more terms or clauses. But otherwise, standard clauses apply, because naturally it will be hard for them to keep changing the clauses and agreements. That itself will be a big overhead for them. So they don't entertain for small workloads. But yes, if you are a very large customer and you have a big plan for you to move the whole. I know some of the large enterprises who have a pure cloud first strategy, and they run on. So think of like a very large enterprise, means especially large startups like Redbus, or maybe Book My Show, or maybe a startup like Freshworks, who are completely on this large cloud. They are only on cloud. So they definitely, because their billings are very high, and definitely Amazon not only changes the they agree to all the terms what Redbus puts, but also Redbus and Freshworks are showcase customers, and so definitely AWS has got a very serious large enterprise account management team, which they work very closely to help along with you, handhold you, and to look at all the security controls. And they definitely entertain to the extent what you want, because you are a showcase customer for them. So, but otherwise, for small time, 2-3 workloads or 10 workloads, it's hard for them to change the agreement and contracts. Anyway, so I think with that note, again, I think let's give it back to Rajesh. Maybe I think he wants some 15-20 minutes, and then at the end, maybe last 10 minutes, we will again address back all the questions in the Q&A window. So I just thought, let me give a quick break to Rajesh so that he can go and have a cup of coffee or water. So Rajesh, if you're comfortable, I want to give it back to you.
Thank you, Sadish. It's a good, and because that's the points which you brought in, which is actually it's an adder, and it's an excellent a summary, which is with good visibility on where all they can see the controls and the controls implementation. It's all you give an adder to the whole presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'm stopping my share, so you can share your screen, please.
Yeah. Okay, Sadish, this is visible now?
Yes, perfect. Please go ahead.
Okay, now the team once again, and thanks to Sadish. Now, this particular point, the factors for auditing, it's purely based on some experience. Okay, however, and we have seen this is what we have seen across any organization who is going for auditing. Now, as a practitioner, you should really look at the controls, but it's not an exhaustive list. But the points which is there, it's a very crux which you need to really look at that. The first one, if you are looking and auditing on the cloud deployment, first you need to really look at that. What kind of type of cloud deployment, whether it is public, private, or hybrid, or multi-cloud, or community cloud. The whole control mechanism and the investment, it's all changed based on that. For example, I can also use even a private deployment. And somebody saw a question also: how do I do the deployment? Okay, if I adopt a private cloud deployment, and still I need to build my own specific the infrastructures available. I will have the infrastructure from the cloud service provider, but then the controls and everything for that particular infrastructure has to be managed by us. By when I say by us, by the organization. Now they will have all the controls available, how the connectivity in and out goes, and what kind of level of protection which they can put it. It's all a gated community which you can build it. Okay, that's a bare minimum. You need to start with that. And lots of tools, access control tools, and identity and access management tools, and it's available in the cloud deployments. And whether it's talk about AWS, Azure, or anyone, and you will see lots of tools available. But you need to choose the right one, which really meet your requirements, which meet your organizational requirements. Otherwise, it's just it's an efforts which you are wasting it. Second, while we have the cloud deployment, but as an organization, you need to have your own policies. And if you look at that, the way Sadish looked at it, and there's 27017, correct, Sadish? And that's for cloud, the CCS. The CCS has some specific cloud security requirements. And if you look at that, one of the certification also they are providing is CCSK and the CCSP by ISO square. But look at that, they like ISO 27001, and you will have some framework available to look at for even for the cloud. Now you need to look at the policies towards cloud and the standards which is required for the deployment, and the procedures, guidelines, and work instruction, and that's you need to really look at it. The first and foremost, like we build a house, and you need to have the network architecture, which you will not get easily. You will say that I'm using this cloud, but still you need to have that clear visibility on my connectivity going, coming in and going, and the components which is dying in the infrastructure. The way you put in architecture diagram for your on-prem deployment, you need to have the similar setup set it for through a network architecture, even in the cloud one. If somebody say that you don't have a network architecture, then that means you build a house without an architecture diagram. You know that you need some walls and you need something, and with luck it's running. Without any one, and you don't know how much strength which you need it. Maybe today you have a one floor, and when you can upgrade to two floor, and whether it is possible. Without an appropriate architecture, you will not be able to do that. That's a similar way. Without an appropriate architecture, your organization cannot sustain in the long term. Okay, now the fourth one, and the tools deployed in the environment, and there are one of the buzzword which you hear that, correct, automation, and it can be automation can go in multiple ways, but even in the automated tools, and if that tools provides an access to everyone, and you are done, and you are done with everything. Now you need to look at the tools, kind of tools which is deployed, and what are the controls behind that. And you need to look at the physical as well as logical and administrative controls deployed for your organization. This is very key components. Without that, don't go for any auditing. Without understanding this, and don't go for an auditing. You also need to look at the data security, regulatory, and the legal requirement. GDPR is one of the key one buzzword now, which is happening across. That is because it's a board discussion. Okay, earlier, data security and privacy was there, and which was happening, which did not really go to the real board attention. But when the penalty was huge now, and also control requirements are huge, then all this is on one of the board discussion happens today on GDPR and other data security and privacy and legal requirements. Now, every system, whether it is workstation or whether it is system or whether it is mobile devices, that's the biggest one. And you have lots of workstation, mobile devices plus system. And all things has to be hardened. When I say hardened means you need to really put a protection mechanism behind that. Okay, that's what you need to really look at. You can use a couple of examples like a CAS framework, and it's very, very vast. Okay, if somebody really wants to learn it and deploy that CAS framework, it's like it's a vanilla ice cream which is available. You can just go and eat it, correct? Otherwise, if you want to make an ice cream at home, you know the efforts involved to make an ice cream at home, correct? And that's similar to that, and the CAS framework. Now, every organization must have some risk management practices. If you're an auditor, you need to ask that, do you have a risk management practices, policies, procedures? And if you just want to recommend also, NIST has a very, very good risk management practices. Even the ISO has come up with the 31,000 for risk management, which anybody can adopt very easily and quickly, which you can deploy it for organization. Now, while everyone knows that the risk management, it all depends on the risk appetite of the organization, but you still must have some process in place. And not only a process, a practice which is deployed for risk management is a must for any for the success of any organization. Now, in addition to that, you have the data, and finally, whatever we are doing, and it's on CAS on the data. Okay, and that's what you need to really look at that, and how do you really protect the data. And now, how do you encrypt the data, how do you protect the data through access control mechanism, and which all their controls which I talked about above. Now, you also need to sure that whether my data can be transported, or is it allowing my network to send my 1 GB data, or even my one patent document. If I just share with the internet, it's all done, correct? Now, what are your data privacy regulations, and what are the tools which you are deployed, data leak protection tools which you are deployed? That's very crucial for the success of the organization, especially in banking and health, and maybe in many of the organizations today. And in addition to that, the encryption, and that's another big line item which every organization must have. How do you protect your data? How do you encrypt your data? Even if somebody take off your data, whether it's visible, they can view it, they can crack it, they can take it, they can identify and transport, share it. That's all. You need to have lots of what are the tools deployed for the encryption, and how does the connectivity to the organization? That's very big one. Like everyone knows the external connectivity, then the physical one. But similarly, you need to know what are the entry and exit point for internet, and how do you connect with the multiple buildings and multiple sites, and all you need to really look at through a network diagram. Plus, network control itself you need to have, and how do you manage the overall network, and how do you really ensure that if somebody really attack your network, and how do you really identify through a SOC and a security operation team, or security operation center, or through with various tools. If an organization say that I don't have any intrusion, uh, you can just directly look at saying that you don't, then which means you are not managing anything. Okay, and today, because most of the organization gets thousands of hits today, and through various means, then you really need to look at what are the controls deployed for your organization. That's one of the factors for auditing. Plus, the adoption of how this organization it's utilizing all the latest technologies such as blockchain and maybe AI, or what are the real components which they have practiced for security, and all you need to look at. And you need to really look at the automation and adoption of automation, and the controls used in automation tools. And I can talk about maybe in several maybe 30 another 1 hour on this, but I'm just limiting. These are the bare minimum and item as a information security team, and you need to look at it. And now, what are the next steps, and what is the enterprise technology stands today? And as we talked about, and we have seen it from beginning, hybrid cloud adoption. And by 2020, 90% of IT enterprise will adopt a hybrid approach, require a multi-cloud management solution. Second, the increased data protection, with a 133% increase in stolen, lost, or uncompromised records in the first half of 2000. Then enterprise will must reassess their existing security measures and invest in external penetration testing and other tools. AI monetization. The AI adoption rate among existing enterprises is expected to reach 78% within the year. That is 2019, which I'm talking about. Those businesses that are already using AI will be looking to monetize their current AI initiative. So what is that we are looking? whether knowingly, unknowingly, we have adopted cloud, we have adopted AI, we have adopted blockchain, and we have adopted all the IoT things at home or an organization and everywhere. It's like without our knowledge, everything came to your plate now. Now, either you need to choose it, eat it appropriately. That's what we need to look at it. Now, edge computing in enterprise IoT by 22, the amount of enterprise data generated and processed at the edge will reach 75% of fueling growth in IoT application that rely on machine learning. That is what you are now hearing. Lots of organizations provide machine learning course, PG, data science, machine learning, and everything is in place. The last buzzword, blockchain implementation. Initially, even I thought that the blockchain it's only for crypto, or maybe Bitcoin is that we everyone knows it. But when I looked at a little details, and for the last 1 year, I can see that blockchain is implementable across everywhere, even for access control, even for disaster recovery, even for implementation of any uh, um, uh, uh, system hardening, and everything is this blockchain is possible, or giving any data protection anywhere. Now I may conduct a blockchain session maybe in the next 6 months if Isaac allows for a CPE. You will see that only on blockchain we will see, because this is another buzzword coming in the industry. With that, before closing my overall one, just wanted to tell you what is a blockchain. It's basically it's incorruptible digital ledger, which means if I'm using a ledger and nobody can touch it, nobody can corrupt it, and this is the excellent ledger for economic transaction that can be programmed and record not just financial transaction but virtually everything of value. Okay, that's why the last sentence is what I talked about. It's going beyond your financial ledger or Bitcoin and blockchain. It's getting moved into everywhere in the industry. If you look at that, blockchain term was first introduced in the white paper of Bitcoin in 2009 by Satoshi Nakamoto. Bitcoin is the first blockchain application. Blockchain underlines Bitcoin is unregulated, censorship resistant, shadow currency, cash like a coin, passing unique, immutable, and final. These three characteristics are becoming virtually everything on value and becoming and the blockchain and the requirement for every transaction, financial or non-financial transaction, which is going to be implementing it today. The digital currency is different from cryptocurrency. I'm not going into different mode. Uh, the people who own this call, and everyone should understand the blockchain. And this is again, it's another. It's a technological disruption which is happening in the industry today. With that, the future is coming faster than you think. Whether it's knowingly or unknowingly, that is where we are today. With that, thank you everyone for your time. I can still see that there are, it was around 130, it's reduced to 99 participants are still there. They are looking at it. And thank you for your time. And Sadish, back to you.
Yeah, so thanks, Rajesh. Now it's a time. I know we are running short of time, but there are plenty of questions, and so I will just quickly take you through the questions. Maybe Rajesh, together we can answer. Maybe something specific you can answer, or I will also help. So I know we have limited time. There are plenty of questions that itself shows, in fact, the what you call the interest in the topic and the subject. So I think it may be difficult to pick up all the questions, but I'll just quickly definitely answer to few of them, and maybe few Rajesh, I'll maybe I can put you to answer. And so common questions I see, in fact, one means common threads like the most of the banks are on CBS platform. How safe it is to host the data center of bank on the cloud? And something similar is like banks are highly regulated in India. Absolutely, I agree. So when we say cloud, it need not be always public cloud, and it can be private cloud also. Typically, banking regulated industries look at a private cloud. So when we say private cloud, of course, there are multiple good solutions where you can have, because cloud the benefits of cloud is enormous. So even the banking industries, so there's no regulations that you should not go on cloud unless the data resides in the jurisdiction of the law of the land. So the cloud is also fine. So in fact, if you look at, that's the reason why today AWS, Azure, all of them have the local regions. If you go back a few years back, when I want to spin off a mission in AWS, the closest region was only Singapore. But now with the local India region, we have Mumbai, there are multiple availability zones. All of the cloud providers are, in fact, have created their own zones, and they assure that the data resides in the law of the land. So because of the recent RBA data localization, data residency clauses, so it is inevitable that these are very common asks by the banking and insurance industries. So in fact, if you go to AWS or even Azure, so AWS allows you to choose the region, and you can choose the local region, and that is absolutely allowed even by the regulators. I know many banks who are on the cloud, because it is hard to believe that any organization does not have a cloud strategy. Having said that, as Rajesh said, maybe may not be all the primary workloads, but then most of the workloads are on cloud. I should not say this, maybe one of the leading bank or many leading banks I know are using Office 365. So that itself means they're using Azure. You understand? So O365. So many times when I ask some companies, are you on cloud? They say no, we are not on cloud. But then when I ask what is your email solution, they say we are using Office 365. So that itself says that they are on Azure platform. So, and of course, many organizations are leveraging many of these as services. Think like your authentication as a service by Microsoft Active Directory takes out all the pain of managing domain controls within the organization. So you can take that as a service. So I think predominantly the whole point is cloud. I think I don't need to talk about the cloud benefits. I'm sure absolutely there are n number of benefits. In fact, cloud offers. In fact. Because it's like I come from the startup world, and especially startups, in fact, they embrace cloud, because the whole point of cloud is, in fact, agility. And also the important thing is most of the startups, if you look at, they try, it's like when you say try, in fact, they want to innovate. It's like in fact, there's a very nice term called as fail fast. You understand? You cannot invest a huge money and you want to fail. But in a cloud, you have a great idea, spin off some machines, take some services, and quickly try to do something. If it doesn't work, it's fine. It's okay. You can quickly innovate fast and fail fast is the message of cloud, and definitely that's the reason why today I think we don't need to discuss about the what you call the growth of cloud adoption, and even large enterprises. You go and talk to any CIO or even the boards or senior management, so they all want to embrace cloud. So having said that, not necessarily it has to be only public cloud. Many organizations I know, in fact, my own organizations, we have created a private cloud. In fact, through HP, they have something called Green Lake Solution. They create a private cloud which absolutely is within your own data center. So every cloud provider has got all that options. And there's also a common question about how can I migrate. So every cloud provider provides you something called as lift and shift. You can talk to your cloud provider, say that I want to shift my data center workloads into the cloud. They provide you all this as service. In fact, it's something called lift and shift. Or even from different cloud providers, you can lift and shift your instances to other cloud providers. I know many organizations has got multi-cloud strategy. That's always inevitable, right? Especially, I'm sure you must have heard of something called CASB, right? So CASB is the next big thing, in fact, which everyone is talking. So CASB is all about Cloud Access Security Broker. Basically, it's a software or it's a tool or a service, basically, which sits between, like, for example, like you have different, so many organizations today have, it's like when you say hybrid, some things I want to keep it in my own environment, some things I want to keep it in public cloud, some on private cloud. So how do I marry all this in between? So CASB, there are plenty of CASB service providers. In fact, a few of them who are like, of course, all of them, including Microsoft or even Netscope, Semantic, Proofpoint, all of them provide you a lot of CASB. These are all CASB solutions. So CASB is the answer for your multi-cloud strategy, have visibility between all the cloud providers. I can have a uniform, a single pane of, there are plenty of solutions to have a single pane of glass monitoring for all my cloud instances. VMware provides a lot of visibility. VMware themselves came out with plenty of solutions. They offer enterprises to establish your own private cloud, and all of them, in fact, I think many of you have heard of a company called Nutanix. Nutanix also gives you plenty of solutions. So there are solutions available, and so for every problem there is a solution. And of course, you need to talk to the right service provider, ask for it. They will provide you most of the services. So I think I answered the banking thing. I answered the migration of cloud. And just quickly going through the questions. Of course, I know it's difficult to answer all the questions, but I think most of the common questions. One question is about cloud certifications. That's my favorite one, as Rajesh already said. So there are vendor-specific cloud certifications, like AWS offers you courses, Google offers you courses, Azure offers you courses, but then vendor-neutral certification, like of course, like ISACA offers vendor-neutral certifications like CISA, CISM, and all. Similar way, CSA, Cloud Security Alliance, offers CCSK, and so there's a wonderful guidance document called Cloud Security Alliance Security Guidance version 4. It talks about very great guidances. Most of the organizations follow CSA cloud controls matrix, which are built upon top of your NIST and ISO 27001 and other controls. There's a lot of mapping between other standards. And also IIC Square. I'm sure all of you heard of IIC Square, especially which is known for CSSP and SSCP. They also offer CCSP. It's also powered by CSA guidance document, is one of the key reference for that certification also. So CCSK, CCSP, and even CompTIA, Cloud Plus, these are all vendor neutral certification. Vendor specific, of course, if you are on AWS, you can pick up AWS Cloud Architect, and there are plenty of other courses for every cloud providers.
Yeah, Satish, yeah. Now we are left with 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thanks for reminding me. Great, but I'm sure. I think all of them are enjoying, and I'm sure it was a great session. Thanks, Rajesh. In fact, maybe I think I can just pick up maybe last 2 minutes. Maybe any common questions I can just see which are unanswered. But otherwise, I think most of them are answered. But having said that, please feel free. It's not that we want to rush up, but of course we'll end up definitely in few minutes. But otherwise, we are always available. Rajesh, of course, I'll just quickly put Rajesh email ID, my email ID, and so Rajesh, quickly help me.
Yeah, Rajesh, I'll type it.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I don't know. My screen is shared.
Oh, okay. TR Rajesh at the rate liv.com.
Yeah, I think you can see my screen.
Yeah.
For any other common questions, if you want to write to chapter, please write to isakabangalore.org. We'll be very happy to support you. In the beginning, I put a slide on the membership. I think many people who are joining from other parts of the country who are not yet members, recommend you to become ISACA member. I know it looks like I'm selling, but then it's a very good time to take benefit of the ISACA membership, so that you are part of the larger community, and you start getting access to all this content, and you get posted on. We are also live on Facebook. I'm sure all of you are live on Facebook, facebook.com/ISACABC. So please go and like this page. You start getting all the updates. So that's the quick last summary. But let me move to the chat window. Membership cost. Someone has asked a membership. Okay. 2-3 questions. How do I get CPE? So when you registered for this webinar, I'm sure you would have put your membership ID. So automatically this membership the member number what you put, those CPs are automatically gets created to your. So from the back end, from the chapter office, the chapter manager will post the CPE into the portal automatically, so you don't need to do anything. But then if you're from a different chapter, or if you're not a member, I'm not sure about, you can maybe drop a mail to chapter@isakabangalore.org. We will verify the data content, how much and then we'll provide you the respective CP. Membership fees, I think a common question. So normally it's a very good time to become member, because Jan to December is the period. The membership standard fees is for Bangalore chapter, of course, it's like think this way: like $135 is ISACA headquarters, $20 for Bangalore chapter. Means of course it's all paid at the headquarters portal only, and $10 is the new member fees. This is the annual membership. So it comes to 165 if you want to become a member of Bangalore chapter, because every chapter has got a different chapter fees. Like Delhi, Mumbai are a little higher side. So 165, but this is a very good time to become member now. Now you get $10 waiver now, $10 in fact waiver. In fact, at the end of the screen, maybe you can put my member ID, or you can drop me a mail. If you put this ID, this $10, there's a waiver. So you're paying only $155. It's a very good time. And also, this August to December is as good as effectively free. So if you become member now, your membership expires on 31st December 2020. It's a great time to become member. That's
Sadish,
yeah.
I think so. People are not hearing. Maybe it's after some people can see voice not there.
Oh, okay. But
any restriction after 8 because it's already 8?
No, I don't think so. But anyway, maybe a specific. Yeah, I think people can hear. Maybe sometimes some people based on the bandwidth, but otherwise I think I am live. I can see, yes, we are able to hear. So this is quickly about membership. Anyway, it does not sound that I'm trying to sell anything, but it's a very good time to get every dollar benefit, because membership benefits are close to $500 or more. You get discounts on exam fees and other content, and access to 50-year-old content. So I cannot stop myself not to talk about ISACA 50. ISACA50.org is a wonderful site which talks about the timelines of how ISACA, in fact, grew in these 50 years, and the access to all that. You get access to the ISACA members. So I recommend you to just go and join online now. And if you still want any support, please drop me a mail. I'll be happy to onboard you and help you in all the way to support to get even the $10 waiver. And it's a wonderful time to become a member, because till December 2020, you can plan for some more certifications. And because anyway, the certification fees. Okay, when is the next CPE session? That's a great question. So definitely very soon. In fact, I think in the next 25 days, maybe in 2 weeks, you'll get an email, because we want to do this. So one more CPE session, again, web-based, is very soon happening. Probably, anyway, we are trying to align speakers. If no one, I will take something around some topic, definitely. So very soon, we will have this web-based CPE session. I'm sure within less than a month, we'll have one more session. So last few months, we were busy with the annual conference and other things, so we could not do this, but otherwise, great. So I'm happy. I think this is this web-based CPs are always benefited because of many people joining from different parts of the even city, because city traffic conditions are very bad now. I'm sure, I think that's the reason why this sessions becomes very active and very live. So with that note, I think just not to keep others waiting. So I'm sure this was a valuable session. So thanks, Rajesh. Thanks for your time, and thank you all of you. In fact, it was great. I personally enjoy moderating or doing these sessions and talking to all of you. It's always great to catch all of our friends and colleagues, and I'm sure, because being live, many people, I know some, I got some pings, people even joining from abroad, right? But that's the benefit of this this session, especially when it's online. And I'm happy people joining from different parts of the country and even the world. So with that note, thank you all for your patience. I'm sure this definitely we would have made some. I know it's a very different, it's a very interesting topic, and 2 hours is not sufficient to cover everything. But then definitely, I think Rajesh has done a great job in covering most of the aspects of cloud and security, and trying to balance between both. And I think I'm sure I would have also given some insights on how public cloud providers also have all the security. In fact, what probably can visit this site, aws.com compliance programs. You get a lot of insights, lot of data. So there's a lot of tons of information available in every public cloud provider sites, because they want to showcase that how secure are they. So
people are dropping.
Great. So with that note, thank you all of you, and have a great evening. So Rajesh, you want to say something?
Yeah, team, and thank you everyone, and for your attention. Thank you.
Okay, with that, have a great evening, and Bye at this point in time.
Thank you.
Bye. Logging off.
Yeah, thank you.